Nation. Yeah. Sirius XM, unbelievable volume.
And welcome back, everybody. We are live on Sirius XM 106 volume. It's Eddie Trunk. This is Trunk Nation, where we talk rock every day, live 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. And joining me now, it's been a little while since we had her on the air, and it's always great to visit with her, from the Pretty Reckless, Taylor Momsen. How are you, Taylor? How you holding up?
Hello, I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm all right. You are quarantined in New England, correct?
I am. I'm in Maine. I was just same break here. I got out of New York just in time, like 2 days before quarantine started. I was coming back up here to continue rehearsing for a tour, and we were in New York doing photo shoots for the record and stuff. And like the timing was pretty crazy. ended up stuck up here, which is not a bad place to be.
So it wasn't by design, because you live in New York City. So it wasn't like I'm getting out of the city before everything comes down. It was just good luck.
It was just happenstance. Yeah.
And I didn't realize this. You said that the roots of your band are all in that area. I always took you guys as being like, I know you're not originally from New York City, but I know you've lived in the city. But I always just, for some reason, I thought the band was all New York based. But you guys are all sort of New England area?
It's all New England, New York. We're all kind of back and forth. Like we all kind of live in both places depending on what we're doing. So it's all kind of the same thing to us. East Coast.
Yeah. What has it been like for you through all this? I mean, you are promoting a single right now, which is amazing. I mean, I texted you about it. I just love it. Death by Rock and Roll. We're going to play it for everybody towards the end of the show if people haven't heard it yet. It's been out a few weeks. But I mean, I assume you have a full record done. And then, like a lot of artists, because of the pandemic, you're sort of in limbo as to when the right time to put it out is. So now you've got a single, and you're basically doing press on a single where people haven't heard the whole record. So, like, what has this whole process been like for you?
It's bizarre, man. I mean, I think, there's a level of anxiety anytime you release new music that you never really know what to expect. But certainly putting out a song in these ridiculously unprecedented times was a bit scary, and really didn't know what was going to happen with it. And honestly, though, the response has been so overwhelmingly positive. It's mind blowing. Like I think it just went top 10 on Mediabase. And it's been out for like 3 weeks. So I don't really know what to say other than just thanks so much for the support and all the love we've been getting. It's really amazing.
Well, I think there's a couple reasons for it, personally. I think, number one, honestly, and I'm not just saying this, I think it's great. I think it kicks ass. I think it's real rock and roll, which is what we really need right now. And also, because it has such a great quality to it, let's be honest. I mean, we're in a time where anybody can put music out, and you got a lot of people pumping things out of their bedrooms and just flooding the market. So when you come with something of such a quality that's so well written and well produced, it's going to jump out a little bit as being sort of like a real thing. And I think people really needed something like that. What was the decision like? Was it from the label side or the band side to say now would be a good time to put this out versus holding it completely?
I mean, we talked about holding it. It was certainly a discussion that we had with our teams and stuff. But it kind of came down to, we all kind of agreed that, you know what, it's rock and roll. Fuck it. Like the world needs some music right now. Music saved me, countless times and has gotten me through hard times. Like I can't sit on this music forever. The record's finished. It's just the first single. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Let's put it out in the world, and then maybe it'll put a smile on someone's face.
So the title of the song, Death by Rock and Roll, tell me about that.
Death by Rock and Roll. It's a long story and a short story. I mean, that song is a song that's basically like 10 years in the making. It was a line that Cato, our producer who passed, used to, Cato, but it's a line that he used to say all the time. It's Death by Rock and Roll. It's an ethic. It's a lifestyle. It's live your life your own way, go out your own way, freedom. Don't let anyone tell you different. So the song really turned into kind of our battle cry for rock and roll and how I want to live my life, and how I do live my life. And it's kind of, we tried to make kind of an anthem for rock and roll.
It's so killer. Now you say the whole album is done. And how long ago did you finish it?
I guess we finished it in end of January. Does that sound,
Okay.
is that right? It took, I don't know, the recording process was quite long. It took about a year and a half to record. Um,
Wow.
yeah, we put everything we had into this record. So I'm really excited for people to hear it when it finally comes out, which I don't have a release date for the full album yet, but it's exciting to get the ball rolling, you know, and have Death of Rock and Roll, the song, out there at least as a teaser start.
Yeah. Well, it's a hell of a teaser, and it's people are really reacting to it. But why did it take that long? Like in that year and a half, was it a lot of time spent on songwriting? Was it, you mentioned Kato, your producer, who passed away? It was in a motorcycle accident, right? That he passed away.
Yes,
So
2 years.
so this is the first time you've made a record without his involvement too, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, this feels like our first record, in the sense that we kind of were starting from scratch again. I mean, it was like you just said, it's the first time we'd ever made music without Kato. So we kind of had to learn how to do this, and do this again. And luckily, after Kato passed, I knew one other guy. His name's Jonathan Wyman, great friend, great engineer, great producer. And he's a really interesting guy. He's a producer who kind of left the round when, of commercial music. And when this isn't for me, and just really wanted to make stuff sound good. And so he's actually up in Maine, and called him. And when I finally had some songs that we wanted to start recording, and he really was just amazing throughout this whole process because we were still kind of, I was kind of a mess. I mean, we went real down there for a while. And it took making this record to pull me out of the kind of depression that I was in. So it was a lot of struggles. And I say it feels like our first record because we really have the vigor and the energy of just literally everything we have is thrown into it. I mean, emotionally, mentally, physically, the whole shebang, like everything we had down to, everything was put into this album. So it's, in that way, it has that excitement of a first record where it's like, you don't know what to expect. It feels like the Pretty Reckless 2.0. I don't know. It's, in my opinion, it's the best record we've ever made. It's like a whole, I don't know, you can hear the evolution.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to hear the whole thing because judging from the song, it's so killer. You talk about the place you were in and how down you were, and I've been in touch with you, and we're friends, and I saw you guys play Rocklahoma shortly after everything with Chris Cornell and how you were feeling when you started kind of getting back out there a little bit, at least playing live. I know what the impact that had on you. And then, of course, losing your producer, Kato, in that accident. I mean, just really, really difficult stuff. So what was the process like for you to recover from all that? I know immediately after Chris Cornell passed away, you just basically shut down. You even canceled the tour because of it, right?
Yeah, I bailed. That devastated me. I mean, it devastated me is the only word that comes to mind. And I wasn't in a good place to be public. I was kind of a mess. And I canceled touring. I went, you know what, this is not, I can't get on stage every night and feign happiness and excitement that I'm here when I'm falling apart inside. So we canceled. I went home to try to process what had happened and take some time. And I actually started writing, and we were actually talking about, with Kato, we were talking about booking a studio and going into make a new record. And then bam, got the call about Kato. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin for me, I guess, in a lot of ways, where it was just, that kind of put me over the edge. If I kind of gave up, Eddie. Like I kind of just went, fuck it. Like, what's the point of any of this? Like, I didn't know how to handle the grief. And I went real down into my own emotions and my own head, into substance abuse, all of that. Everything.
There were a lot of people really worried about you then, as you know, myself included. I mean, I dropped you some text checking on you, and I know a lot of people in your inner circle did. There were really people very concerned about you at that time. It sounds like deservedly so.
Yeah, and it was really, I mean, I'm very thankful that I have such a great support group, but it really, no, it was bad there for a minute. And to make a long story short, it was music, because I didn't really know what to do anymore. So I turned to music, started just by listening to records that I love and trying to just get through each day. And that kind of turned into writing, which I didn't really try to write this record. It kind of just poured out of me. And once that kind of started, then it was like, okay, I have a start of I have enough material here that we need to start recording. And that led to the whole other process of, okay, how the hell do we go about doing this now? Which led us to Jonathan Wyman. But it was a long road. It was a long process. And I don't think, it's grief and stuff like that. It's not something loss. You never get over it. It's just something you learn how to live with. And I think this record, all of that, all the culmination of all of those emotions and all that shit we went through is really reflected in this record.
The interesting thing for people to know about your love of Chris Cornell and how much it impacted you, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you didn't actually know him personally well at all. If I'm not mistaken, you were just a huge fan and he was a big influence on you. But if I'm not mistaken, you had told me shortly after that tragedy happened that you actually met Chris for the first time, because you were on tour with Soundgarden, opening for Soundgarden the night Chris died. But I'm pretty sure you told me a story that he actually, the first time you met him was the night that he later took his life, right? That you were standing, you told me some story, he came by you as he was going off stage or something. Refresh my memory, tell me if I'm right, because I remember you telling me something like that.
Not the first time I'd met him, but it was, yeah. But I mean, I had spoken to him a few times on that tour. We'd had a couple nice conversations. I certainly didn't know him well by any means. I grew up idolizing and worshiping his music. But yeah, I mean, that night it was the last show of the tour. So I stood outside just wanted to say thanks and goodbye. And it was a brief, sweet moment. And, we stayed in the parking lot hanging out after, he left, and we were hanging out and waiting for the buses to leave, and went to bed that night. And the next morning woke up to the most tragic news ever. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I didn't know I'd never felt anything like that before.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I mean, that speaks to how much he meant to you from a musical perspective, because the grief that you have is understandable, but it's coming from the place of just your love of how his music touched you more than anything, because it wasn't like you had a close personal bond with him, like you did say with Kato, where it was, a different thing. He was somebody that was very much in your world.
Oh yeah, that was a whole, I think that's why it was so painful. I mean, not why, but one of the reasons all of this was so painful. It was such a 1-2 punch of like, I lost an idol and then you lost your best friend, like bam, bam, right back to back. And it just, it was something I didn't really know how to, I'd never experienced anything even remotely close to it. And I had no idea how to go about healing. And it took a long time, but it's music and baby steps. That's what I learned. Just one little foot in front of the other until you'll end up on the other side, So
needless to say, I'm sure that some of these things that you've endured are certainly going to be manifested in this full record when we hear it. That it's probably there's a lot in there. Safe to say,
it's all in there. Yeah, it's pretty much as bare as it can get.
Did that process help you, Taylor? Did it help you get on the other side of it, doing it through music?
I think it was the only way I could have possibly gotten through it. So yeah, it helped me immensely. It was therapy in a lot of ways, I think I said this already, but it kind of just poured out. It wasn't something I had to try to write a song about something. It was so ingrained into who I became and who I was that there was no escaping anything. There was no trying to hide from it. So it was just, well, this is the cards that life have dealt me right now. So, I have to, either give up death and give up, or, figure out how to move forward. And music I trusted music like I have my whole life. And I turned to that again. And I gotta say, thank God for rock and roll. I know it sounds so cliche, but rock and roll saved my life. Like it full on did 100%.
Yeah, I've said this many times. I mean, I have so much respect for you on so many different levels as an artist, because we see and have seen over the years, like, a lot of people who, you know, they're in acting and maybe they dabble in rock and roll or whatever. I mean, your commitment to rock music, the fact that you left acting and went after rock music to really, I mean, there's nobody that could ever possibly question your love or your commitment, or how it's in your fiber. Do you have any desire to ever act again, or are you full on into music and you don't want to go back to that world ever?
I mean, I'm always full on the music. That is 100%. Could never ever leave that behind. It's who I am as a person. I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I wasn't writing and playing music, even if it wasn't for the public. Like, even if I was just doing it for myself. That's why it's the best job in the world, is I'd be writing songs and playing songs in my house, like I am in quarantine right now, just because, like, for me. As far as acting, I mean, I was so against it for such a long time because it was such a part of my childhood. But now, you know, I'm an adult now. I've lived a lot of lives. I wouldn't say never again, just because, you know, life gets life gets monotonous, you know, at times, and maybe you want to switch it up. So, you know, who knows? But it's not something I'm actively pursuing or anything. But I wouldn't say like a hard no like I used to.
Do people actively pursue you to get back into it?
I get calls. I get calls.
Yeah.
Nothing sparked my interest yet, though.
Right, right, right. What about getting this record out? When would you like to put it out? Like, is it just a label decision, or are you guys just going to kind of feel the vibes out there when it might be the right time to actually put it out for everybody to hear?
Yeah, we're kind of feeling out the vibes. I mean, we want to put out a couple more songs too before the full album, like you would in any circumstance. I want to put out a couple, like, introduce people to the album the way I want people to kind of get familiar with it before the whole thing is out. But I don't know. I mean, we don't. It's really hard to not be able to. I mean, just putting out one song, let alone a whole record, to put out music and not be able to tour on it is brutal. Like,
Yeah.
it really. I mean, it sucks. I mean, I know there's so much craziness in the world right now, but it's very difficult because it doesn't feel real in a lot of ways, because, you know, playing live is the thing that really completes that circle, and to not be able to do that, you feel like it's like, you know, the song comes out and it's like I'm sitting here alone, call the band, you know, you talk, you go, okay, it's out, cool, guys,
Doing great.
it's doing great.
About
What
to
you
get
watching?
another Zoom.
Yeah, about to do another Zoom. What you watching? You know, like, it's what now? So it's a bit bizarre. So I think, you know, hopefully we want to kind of put the record out at least closer to, you know, when it looks like there's going to be kind of some more light at the end of the tunnel, so it's closer to when we can get back out there and actually play for real. Because quarantine videos and stuff, that's all good and fine, but, you know, how many of those can you actually do before it's, you know, we need to be in a room. I want Jamie smashing the drums and the guitars fucking blazing and the bass loud, and I want to scream into a microphone, and I want an audience in front of me, you know, like that's what's awesome. And it's a bummer to not be able to do that right now, but, you know, safety first. And this is a storm, like any storm, it will pass. So we just got to be patient.
You know, I was thinking about it. You could almost re-release Messed Up World right now. It would kind of fit with what's going on, don't you think? You were a fortune teller there, Taylor.
I don't know if we're a fortune teller. I don't know if the world just. I feel like every time it wouldn't be a Pretty Reckless record without some sort of chaos surrounding it. You know, and unfortunately, I don't think the world changes that quick. Every time we put out a record, there seems to be a song that somehow comes back around when we put out another record that's relevant again. And yeah, Fucked Up World certainly is one of them, because we are living in that right now.
Speaking of quarantine videos and speaking of Soundgarden, you did something, right? You did something with Matt Cameron, right?
We did, yeah. We did Halfway There by Soundgarden, quarantine style, is kind of a tribute for Chris. And I think it turned out pretty well. It was my first quarantine video, trying to figure out all the technical aspects of things, which I've been struggling with. People think I'm joking when I get on these Zooms and stuff, and I go, this is the first time I've opened a computer in 5 years at minimum. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm constantly playing catch up with all the Instagram lives and the Zooms and everything. But no, I think that turned out pretty well. And think it was a nice tribute. Great
Yeah,
song.
it was. Yeah, it really was. But that's interesting what you said, though. So you're telling me that you're not a good tech person. Like most people would think, like you're young, you should know all this stuff. Like I would think, like, oh, well, Taylor could tell me how to do this or something. But no, you're the opposite. You're not.
I wouldn't be able to tell you anything. I'm the worst. I literally, I have to call John. I have to call the band. I have to call our Sean Kelly, our engineer, our tech guy. I'm calling everyone going, how do I do this? And they're like, it's so easy. You hit the button. Like my first Instagram live, I was just trying to figure out how to do it before it was all interviews and stuff. So I went on with my friend Allie. Do you know Allie?
Of course I know Allie, yeah.
She was like, I'll teach you how to do it. So we tried to do it together. Got on, kind of worked, didn't really understand it, couldn't read the comments. They were going by too fast. I'm kind of blind. I didn't really know what I was doing. We go, okay, we'll wrap it up. I get the hang of it, kind of. And then I couldn't figure out how to end it. And so she hung up and I'm stuck on Instagram Live and I'm going, how do I hang up? Someone tell me how to hang up. And everyone just keeps typing end. I'm like, I get it. I'm trying to end it. And I see in the corner, there's a giant button that says end. I'm like, oh, I'm stupid. Okay. Thanks, guys. Till next time.
See, I'm 55 years old. You're 20 something. You're supposed to know those things. I'm the person who's supposed to be doing what you're doing, Taylor.
Yeah, I don't spend time on computers. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I like reality. I like playing music and I like actual conversations and all the apps and all the whatever. It just seems like I don't know. I guess it passes the time. It's kind of interesting. But I like it in quarantine and the fact that we can still stay, connected with one another. I think that's great. But spending all your time on a computer just seems like a waste of life to me. Go outside.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the last thing before we play the song, I mean, and this ties into what we're talking about as far as doing live shows, and anybody that's seen the Pretty Reckless, just a tremendous live band. And I was just running down every day for the last few months. I've been on here running down concerts, tours, festivals that are postponed, canceled, whatever the case may be. As far as live plans for you guys, obviously, I'm sure that's all backburnered. Nothing on the books now, right?
No, and it's I won't say not on the books. It's just we had a great touring plan for this year. I mean, it was all the festivals, all the U.S. festivals, all the Europe festivals. It was Guns N' Roses with Gary Clark Jr. It was Foo Fighters. It was Pearl Jam. Like great touring set up. And I think what's happening is just all of that. None of it's really canceled. It's all just getting pushed. So I'm trying to keep the positive outlook on everything. Of like, nothing's gone. Everything's just temporary. It's just paused. It's paused. And I think that when live music comes back, people are going to be dying for it, because when you take something away from someone, they just want it more. So when I feel like it could come back bigger and better than ever. And in that sense, because I've been saying, I'll never complain about touring again because I'm dying to go on tour. And, touring gets very tiring. You get about halfway through your year in or whatever. And you're like, I just want to go home. Never again. I'll never take it for granted again because it's the best job in the world and I fucking miss it.
Yeah. I'm not always the overly optimistic guy, but I agree with you. I'm optimistic that we're going to come out the other side of this and it could be bigger and better than ever because people are, I mean, look, there's an economic factor too. Some people really going to need to recover financially before they're able to spend money on shows. But I think I feel even optimistic that that's going to come back soon too. I just feel like we're going to be in a good place and we're going to kind of hopefully wash away much of 2020 and just be in a better place going forward. And maybe even like you sort of alluded to, have even more of an appreciation for the things we do. Like, even what I do, being out there hosting this stuff or being able to connect with these artists. I mean, all of that is something we all miss. And I think that it's something we certainly won't take for granted.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. You stole the words out of my mouth.
Well, listen, I want to wrap up with you only because I want to play Death by Rock and Roll in its entirety. It's important people hear this because it's that good, and I've been raving about it since I first heard it, and I'm so psyched to hear the rest of the record. And of course, when the album comes out and there's more to talk about, well, you can come on anytime. You're always texting me like, hey, about this. Just come on anytime.
Well, I don't know how to. I don't know it's got to be professional or whatever.
No,
I don't know.
No, it doesn't. You know me, it doesn't.
Well, I know you, but then it has to go through, Sirius has to get on.
No, just text me and be, I need the hotline. I need to chime in on this, and you'll be on in 2 seconds.
All
It's
right,
easy.
I will. All right,
You
I got
always
it.
have an open door anytime you want to come on. You know that, and we'll do the professional bit when the full album comes out, and remind everybody about it then too. So, hey, I'm glad to see. Great to talk to you. I'm glad to see you sounding and looking so well. I'm glad you're feeling better. Congrats on the song. It's killer. And hit me up if you need anything.
Eddie, I love you, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Taylor. You too. Take care, all right?
All right, you too. Stay safe.
Bye-bye. You too. There she goes, Taylor Momsen of The Pretty Reckless. And we